Welcome back to the channel. The massive game-changing update that we saw in December really gave Lens Island the much-needed facelift that just added so much to the game, from a massive procedurally generated map to new monster types and a boss, and even much more than that. About a week or two ago, Flow Studio posted their 2023 roadmap, and I wanted to go through and talk about what all they've got planned and just my general thoughts. And as always, please do not forget to like and subscribe because I'll have a lot more Lens Island news and just general content coming your way. So starting off, I'll link the roadmap in the description below so you can read it on your own, but basically it's broken down into more small, medium-sized updates that'll take its way through August of this year, with the rest of 23 being a bit more broad in terms of game plan. The first update that's coming in March is broken down into 3 elements: combat improvements, controller support, and ocean updates, specifically part 1. Combat improvements are noted as just general improvements to combat and dungeon crawling, and most importantly, rebalancing and potentially altering current weapon sets to make each weapon class a little bit more unique. Now personally, I'm dying for a bit more uniqueness in the weapon sets. I love if certain weapons were more effective against different types of enemies, or maybe even certain weapons could afflict the enemy with a temporary debuff. For example, being hit by a hammer could have a % chance to increase the time between that debuffed enemy's attack. And with each tier increase, that change could increase by a small percentage like 5%. Or even things like swords having a small chance to proc bleed, doing a small amount of damage over time. Now I could go on and go through each weapon set, but I'll spare you from me ranting. Controller support is something that's been asked by a lot of players, and it looks like over the course of the year they'll be slowly implementing that, and which would also include remappable player controls and eventually rebuilding the entire UI and menu to cater to the controls. The Ocean Update Part 1 includes new kinds of fish, including squids and ink, which could maybe be used for dyes. We don't really know exactly yet what ink's used for, but I'm sure we'll hear something very soon. Along with that is a new system of currents and seaweeds that'll either speed up your boats or slow them down. Julian showed us an example of how they're using algorithms to procedurally generate these currents. These currents will be super useful because you can just use them basically as a highway to get from, say, like Bridgewater Island to whatever island you have a second base on. Which is nice because then it'll kind of promote people building and expanding outside of the starter island. Moving on to the April-May month, which is update number 2, we've got the Compendium and Bestiary, Armor and Clothing, more Ocean Updates Part 2, and finally new town and NPC building content. Starting from the top, I'm a huge fan of the idea of the Compendium and Bestiary because I love being able to reference all my player stats, especially since I've just played so much Lens Island as it is. To be able to track how many Voidlians I've killed or blueberries I've harvested is just such a fun idea. The new armor and clothing system I'm personally the most excited for because it just adds so much in terms of variety. There's 2 sides to the armor and clothing at this point. The one side of changing aesthetics, and the other side is unlocking new skills, which basically acts as a transmog system. Now if you're wondering what that means, let's say you can unlock a new chicken hat that gives you a 20% movement speed. If you don't want to wear the chicken hat, which is ridiculous because everyone should want to wear the chicken hat, but if you don't want to, you can switch that hat out for something different and still keep that 20% movement speed, even though the skill technically gets unlocked with the chicken hat. To unlock these items, you'll have to complete various things from tasks to exploration to killing bosses and more. I'm really hoping they have some really hard challenges to unlock armor or clothing that may be super unique, like something as difficult as beat the Void Boar or Troll by using only starter equipment, or beat the Void Boar or Troll without healing. Stuff that really puts your skills to the test and allows you to show off to the other members in the community. The final part of the April-May update portion is the new town and NPC building content, which they specifically note that they aren't giving too much detail on this yet. But basically, if you build nicer homes for the villagers will reward you with better buy-sell prices, and most importantly, have higher gold limits. Now they could keep it as simple as you have to have X amount of items on the plot of land, or make it a lot more detailed by requesting specific pieces of decorations for each villager. For example, say the blacksmith needs 1 furnace, 1 workbench, 1 stone storage, and 1 wood storage to reach that blacksmith rewards, or the farmer would need 2 farms, 1 lattice, 1 large flower pot, 1 chair, and 1 table to reach his rewards. The update number 3 is supposed to occur in June, which adds creative mode, a hardcore survival mode, and building updates. Creative mode should really be a no-brainer as you'll have unlimited resources and most importantly access to new commands, which I assume means you'll be able to change the time of the day and the weather. Now I do not know if this is still the case, but the plan for creative mode was originally basically to give you a flat land to build on, so it would look noticeably different from the normal game mode. This allows you to play around with different builds that you may want to try out on the normal game mode, but also makes it so that to build a lavish base utilizing the geography and topography of the normal style map, you'll have to play the game to get all the required resources. I like this a lot because a lot of people work hard in the normal game mode gathering supplies and beating hard bosses, so it lets them feel a little bit more pride building a home with all the decorations compared to someone who just whipped it up in creative mode in a few minutes. Now with hardcore survival mode, I'm not sure as to what direction they're planning on taking this, whether it's a permadeath feature so if you die your Lynn is gone for good, or at least transfers to a normal game mode, or it could be so that your hunger bar decreasing to 0 means that your health will also slowly decrease until it reaches 0 and then you die. Or that maybe when you die you lose everything in your backpack, which is basically takes us back to how things were before the Uncharted Waters update. Personally, I'm hoping for a permadeath mode because I am a glutton for punishment. Building updates I'm super excited for as well because they're potentially looking into adding triangle foundations, which can really improve just overall aesthetics of homes that people can build. Along with improving building snapping, which I'm hoping gives us more spots to snap to. So instead of just the corners of a foundation, for example, we can snap to the halfway points as well. The other added building updates are more decorations and construction items, which is honestly just so necessary because I love the building component of the game. Now, update number 4 is perhaps the biggest planned update of 2023 yet, which adds the next Act 4, which is the second to last act planned for Lynn's Island. Act 4 at this time is planned for July-August and will include more biomes and many more islands, a new wave-based dungeon, and new enemies with a new boss. Now, I'm hoping for a snowy biome because I just love building my homes in the snow. It could maybe even be on a mountain or something like that, which would be so amazing and the views would be spectacular. The wave-based dungeon I'm super excited for as well because it'll add a layer of competition within the community, with who can reach the highest wave, or even if there's a max level wave, it'd be a great way to earn some additional supplies assuming there's a reward system in place. Which who knows, the wave-based dungeon could be a way for us to unlock that new piece of armor or clothing for our Lynn that I mentioned before. We saw with the Uncharted Waters update 2 brand new enemies because technically some of the enemies on the desert islands were just the same voidlings with a different skin. They were menacing and powerful, so I look forward to having even more variety, at least in terms of melee versus casters, since the new update we saw included giving some of the larger voidlings a casting ability. Maybe some of the voidlings will gain access to range weapons, or we'll have kind of like a mage class voidling, who knows. Julian goes on to say that the plan is to finish the content for Lynn's Island over the next 12 months, which includes not only Act 4, but Act 5 as well. Among finishing content, they're planning to be fully out of early access within the next 12 to 18 months, and fingers crossed, co-op multiplayer will be added within that time frame as well, which I know everyone is super excited for. I'm looking forward to the future of Lynn's Island, as I hope you all are as well. Now, what is your favorite feature coming that I just mentioned? Please drop it in the comment section below. I'm curious to see what the community thinks. I think for me personally, it's a toss-up between a building update or new biomes, which honestly kind of go hand in hand for me, or maybe you're looking forward to testing your mettle in the new wave-based dungeon. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and I'll have a lot more updates for you as we get closer and closer to each new update. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you next time, YouTube.